All right, Stephen A.
Carapaz is a Grand Tour winner who can win mountain stages, so like it's not that outlandish to think of him as a breakaway guy.
Welcome back to the Unchained Binge podcast. I'm Caley Fretz. This is the podcast where we go deep on Netflix's Unchained Tour de France series. We're up to episode 7 now. We've got 2 left. And today's episode is focused on EF Education, Easy Post, the pink team. Jonathan Vaughters, the man who started that team and continues to kind of run it. We've got a bit of Richard Carapaz, the Ecuadorian hero, versus Tadej Pogacar. We've got questions around whether Pogacar is ruining cycling. And to talk about all this, joining me today, I'm gonna go in reverse of last episode. Intern Nick, welcome back.
Thanks, Caley. It's good to be back.
Dane Cash.
Yeah, it is good to be back. I second what Nick said. Yeah,
that's you. And Jonny Long.
So good to be seeing you guys again.
It's been so long. It's been just a really long time. Yeah. Let's get into this episode. I weirdly enjoyed this episode. I don't think
because you're an EF fanboy, Caley. That's why.
There's just really no reason to enjoy this episode, but I nonetheless enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that we stretched the absolute limits of what actually happened into something that ended up being semi interesting. We ended up with another perfect example of why the Jonathan Vaughters Understanding the Assignment Award is named after Jonathan Vaughters, and also why he wins it every single year. We got some really good stuff, I think, out of this one. The Carapaz angle, I think, is an interesting one, right? Because it's another one of those angles that, like, at the actual bike race, when we're covering the actual bike race, is not that important, to be perfectly honest. Like, we're focused on the actual leaders of the GC. We would never put Carapaz really in that category, even though Vaughters puts him in that category regularly. But when you get sort of the underlying story, the backstory, it does get a little more interesting, right?
Yeah, but you know why we get it is because EF give Netflix what they want. To a lesser extent, this is what happens with the French teams, is that by understanding the assignment, by building up the drama without necessarily having to be told what to say and how to act, as maybe AG2R would have had to a bit, and Total Energies or whatever, Jonathan Vaughters comes prepared and ready with the storylines, figured it out, how they're going to sell the story. This is what has in part made your guys' country great, is that you ask anyone, any American, for like their life story or what they are, and they have like a 20-second snippet of, they grew up here, but then they did that and they overcame that, and then they've arrived here, and that's just that's who you are, and that's why you've achieved what you guys have. So Americans, I get it; it makes sense.
We're ready to pitch at any moment.
Your marketers, your storytellers, it works for Netflix.
I do think there's also a shade of difference here between this and decathlon, like.
They don't want to be grouped with the canoe salesman.
No. I'm not talking about Americans. I'm talking about EF and Carapaz,
okay,
who's Ecuadorian. With the decathlon episode, they were talking about the various.
Dane really hated this episode. The
decathlon
episode,
but largely because they made it seem like Felix Gall and Sam Bennett. I mean, Bennett in his prime, spectacular. I'm a big Bennett fan, actually. Really like Bennett. He was not going he was not a favorite.
Enormous shade at Bennett in this week's spin cycle, and I feel really bad about it still.
Yeah, you should.
Well, then, okay.
This is the most animated I've seen Dane about anything.
Even so, I'll say it. Bennett was not a favorite to win these sprints, but they talked about him like it was going to be the end of the world if he didn't.
And
when
they
in
didn't
reality,
support him
like,
with any lead out at all.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like Decathlon just rolled the dice on this guy because I think he was pretty cheap, and it seemed like a fine move at the time, and still kind of does because they're probably not paying him that much. In contrast,
all right, Stephen A.
I'm happy to be Stephen A. in this show. Fine. Carapaz is a Grand Tour winner who can win mountain stages, so like it's not that outlandish to think of him as a breakaway
If you're going
guy.
to pick another guy to focus on when you've already covered the big three, then yes, I agree.
I was more okay with this by a significant margin than a whole episode about decathlon. Is all I'm saying. Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. You are
Dane
right.
is personally aggrieved by episode 3.
It was 40 minutes of my life that I actually really enjoyed seeing the inner life of Sam Bennett. That was good, but I didn't need the context of it.
His kids were given a lot of trust in the kitchen, though. Like, they were given unopened bags of, like, nuts and berries. I was like, that's going to fucking go everywhere. And you've got a very clean Monaco kitchen. So,
yeah.
What's going on here? Anyway.
But yeah, I thought it was okay to focus on Carapaz. And also, it was better, because remember, this is not the first time that we've gotten this focus on EF and Carapaz. And at least this time, Vaughters was a little less excited to tell us that Carapaz is the only rider in the world who can beat Pogacar. It was more like he was saying we could win a stage, but that's what we could do.
It was a bit more based in reality this year.
And I appreciated that.
Yeah, same.
Did they even talk about the fact that he ended up winning polka dots?
No.
I don't think so.
But
they didn't even mention
I'm
it.
wondering if that'll happen in the next episode, because they did not talk about that.
I don't think
Which seems like a big deal.
I presume episode 8 will tie up a lot of the loose ends, where like we get Philipsen's sort of redemption, we get Carapaz going the extra mile and delivering for EF, we get we get all of it tied up. That's why I presume
I've seen episode 8 already. I'm trying to remember. I don't think so.
Anyway, let's not jump the gun. We can
plus what I was really hoping for in this episode was our good friend was working for Cannondale at the time and had to fly a polka dot bike from Connecticut with like 12 hours notice for the end of the Tour de France. We didn't get any of that. None of that.
No.
We
didn't even get that story in Escape Collectors because he wouldn't give it to us at the time.
That's true. I think one of my issues with this episode, and it's just with the series in general, because it's such a recurring theme, and I get that they're trying to set the stakes. Like the stakes they're trying to set the stakes as like life and death for
it's a story circle
for each of these teams, but that worked in like season 1. It kind of worked in season 2. We're in season 3. How many times? How many times can these teams look at the camera and say, "If we don't win a Tour de France stage, we will not exist next year," and then they go on and they don't win a Tour de France stage, and they still exist next year, because it's total nonsense, right? Like, yes, you have to win stuff every once in a while to get keep your sponsors happy. Yes, the sponsors probably are pressuring them, like, hey, you guys need to perform, blah 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 blah. Less than half of the teams that started the Tour de France this year won a tour stage.
Well, and you got the Pogacar excuse, which is
he won most of
a gimme to most of the teams out there at the moment. You'd be like, well, we can't do anything.
And yet they all continue to exist, right? Like it is just it's a thoroughly disingenuous storyline, because like you have to do something. You have to win occasionally. You have to do something. One, the tour isn't the only thing all year. 2, there are entire teams that have existed for 15, 20 years based off nothing more than getting in random breakaways that are doomed to never win anything. I broke on this episode, and I think it was Vaughters that said it at some point, and I just I was like, I can't take this anymore. It's just not true.
Well, they
have
just that staged convo between him and his boss,
Phil Holt,
and it's like, we had this already. You don't need to do this again. We had this boardroom meeting already.
Yeah. We don't need another boardroom meeting.
I kind of liked it, though, because you see EF and like the team as well, and the vibe of the team doesn't necessarily come off in the series, where they're like, at least they were more in the past, like kind of the cooler team, because they seem to pay more attention to like the zeitgeist. They would do collabs with, horrible streetwear brands or whatever. But I presume that EF, the travel company, where like their branding is either the cycling team or literal children walking the streets of cities on group travel trips. It's quite wholesome. Whereas Phil Holt seems like a performance-based CEO who's a serious man and a serious operator, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. I was expecting him, at least in public, to come across as, the vibe of the team.
I found it really interesting how they had all these discussions about the life or death, and Phil Holt and JV are having this stage conversation. And they talk about Carapaz as if Grand Tour winners grow on trees.
Yeah.
Do y'all remember that? Where
He's
he's
gonna
like,
have a tough conversation about what to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
You're gonna have a tough
exactly.
conversation about coming up with the money to hire Pogacar, because otherwise you're just gonna keep having the same thing happen. Like there's no easy alternative there. But they made it. You're right. They made it sound like there was.
yeah, just
But
find the guy.
That's the same. That's the same perspective as that Sirius from AG2R, which is like
just sprint, fucking
yeah,
sprint,
just
Sam.
fucking sprint.
Just
You
do
know,
it.
and, like it was basically just fucking climb,
But
Richard.
it's because these
Like-
business guys, that is how they operate, right? Because in the in the real life marketplace or whatever, you can just kind of click your fingers and people just do shit. And if they
Yeah.
and the problem is in the real world, everything is much more of a grey area where you can kind of fudge the numbers and make it appear like you did something anyway. Whereas the problem with bike races, there's a purity to them, and there's official records of who did good, who did bad.
I think we
You
should
either
also
won or
point
you
out. I
lost.
mean, we've gotten this sort of storyline of we need to win or we're going to cease to exist from practically every team, or at least every
Yeah,
second-tier
maybe
team.
we can have a team in the tour once all these lot, fade into obscurity. We won't
And-
win either, but
And we don't need to win because that's actually not going to define our future. I will also point out we got that from Arkea. I didn't mind that episode so much because Arkea's situation is pretty dire.
it is probably actually maybe true with some of the small.
Kevin
French teams.
Vauquelin, though, well, that's what I wanted to say. Kevin Vauquelin won a stage. They literally said, "Oh, it secures our sponsors. Like this is good. We've got some." No, they're probably going to fold. So
Yes.
like, not only is it not true that winning or that not winning doesn't mean the end of your team.
It harms you.
Sometimes winning doesn't actually mean your team survives either. It's just
Yeah.
the stakes are not the,
The,
way
bo-
that
the boss of
they portray it.
Archaea saw they want to say, like, oh yeah, fuck, I still sponsor that cycling team. We should definitely, we're cutting costs. We need to get rid of
Yeah,
that.
maybe that's exactly what it was.
I enjoyed seeing Richard Carapaz's mother's house in
Yep.
Ecuador. I thought
That was
that was very nice, very aesthetic. I thought her passion for gardening was fantastic, and you could see the amount of time she'd put into that. I question whether I hope it was a local film crew that did that bit, because I question for what we actually got out of it, apart from like a nice warm fuzzy feeling. We didn't get much. Richard Carapaz kind of half hugged his mum.
Yep.
He pointed at a few things on the wall, and then we got back to the tour.
Warm fuzzy feelings are not enough for Johnny. Like you need to
No.
give him more.
Well, not when they're trying to sell us the life or death thing. It's like, I wanted to learn a bit more about like Richard Carapaz's childhood.
Yeah.
See a bit more of where he's from. Like, you've gone all the way for that trip. You've spent budget on that, presumably. Give me more than just like the four walls of his mum's kitchen.
Was that statue, like that bronze statue, was that of Carapaz? There's that statue that got
I
in a
think it was
couple
supposed
shots.
to be.
Maybe because of his Olympics win, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of had that Ronaldo bronze statue vibe to it, where I was like, there is some resemblance,
It is.
but
I've just confirmed this. It is a.
it is him.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite lines in the whole episode was when JV's like doing a little sort of like motivational speech on the bus, and then he just caps it off. It was on the bus, I think. And he caps it off with, "Oh, and by the way, the chairman." So like the boss's boss's boss, he doesn't really give a shit about any of this, but today he's watching. Today, don't mess it up. And then is he talking about Phil Holt? Is Phil the chairman?
I think I know, because he's into bikes, so maybe it's the other.
Yeah. So this is what I was a
guy.
little bit confused by, because I was like, well, if Phil Holt only watches 6 bike races a year and today is one, why is he also flying to France to sit down with you to discuss the performance of the team? That's not jiving. That's not jiving in my
Maybe
head.
he means 7 races, so like the 3 Grand Tours, Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders, Milan-San Remo, and
Scale the Priest.
yes.
And then,
Definitely
and
that.
then the other sort of semi-related JV quote that popped out at me was, "I deal with the financial backers. It's my job to keep that negativity from filtering into the rest of the team." Which one, the previous quote is kind of not that, right? So kind of the opposite of what he's saying. But 2, that one, to bring it back to episode 3, like I genuinely think I liked that line from Vader, because I very much think that is his role in a lot of ways, and it's also what the bosses of AG2R were absolutely not doing, right? Like they were basically taking the financial pressures that were coming from their backers and applying them directly
Yeah.
to the riders,
Yeah.
as if that was going to be
As if that was their
motivating
job.
in some way.
Yeah.
As, like completely ridiculous.
There was another good Volters quote where, along this line of when he's talking about the financial imbalance between EF and like UAE, he talks about how UAE are able to purchase dominance and how their tour squad costs more than EF's total running cost for the whole year, which is a great way to frame it and is the truth of the matter. But then he follows up with adding that Pogacar is just him doing his thing. He's a cold-blooded killer, which is definitely true. Is that part of it is, yes, it's Moneyball. Well, not even Moneyball. It's just having the budget to buy the riders. But the fact is that if Pogacar was on another team, like a lesser team, he'd probably still be winning the Tour de France.
I think
so. It's just this perfect storm of like massive money team and one of the best riders ever.
This was the one episode where I felt like the whinging, the constant whinging from all of these teams that are not UAE or Visma, kind of made sense because Pogacar would still win. I think Pogacar still wins the Tour de France, right? He still wins a ton of the races that he's winning on a different team. In this one instance, and I don't think they explored this enough. I feel like they could have said more, just explained in like 10 seconds why this is true. UAE, the team around him, is controlling the race in a way that only a good team can do. And that's why the breakaway riders are not winning the stages. So I think literally
that's why
after
Carapaz didn't win that stage.
Exactly. Yeah. So after Carapaz did win that stage, I remember I wrote a story about, sort of tongue-in-cheek, about how they don't get to decide whether they win the stage. It's up to Tadej whether he wins the stage or not. He just tells his guys to go work, go catch the breakaway. I want to win today. That is an instance where having that strong team actually does matter, because Pogacar himself can't chase down the breakaway every day. He needs his team to set him up.
But didn't Vazer say something in the show about like, oh well, in the previous era, he like Carapaz would have won that?
Yes,
right?
He did. Yeah, he did say that.
Which is
maybe
very true.
That's.
But they didn't really explain why that's the
team.
case. Yeah, they didn't really
That's
explain
because,
why
and I feel like they could have said more. Because in general, whenever they say like, "Oh, it's all about money now, and we don't have it," yeah, that's true, Arkea. But also, like, you don't have a single rider who's as good as Tadej Pogacar. You don't have a single rider who's half as good as Tadej Pogacar. So that's also why you're not winning. It's not that you don't have 8 guys. You don't even have 1 guy.
It's when Pogacar also says like, well, you know, if I just decide to gift wins or not win, then you know, my boss isn't going to understand that. And it's like, yes, to a certain extent, but it doesn't mean you have to chase down every breakaway and, you know, win the final 3 stages of a Tour de France that you've absolutely sealed shut. Like, there are levels to it.
I think Pogacar's already in legacy mode.
Oh, 100%. He's looking at doing number 36.
He's looking at beating Cav's record. Yeah.
I did like 100%. That we got a little bit of Geraint Thomas talking about that in that episode there.
I like that they describe Geraint Thomas as Geraint Thomas' teammate. Did y'all notice that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they pop his little name card up, it's Geraint Thomas, whatever the word for teammate is in French. I'm sorry, and then it flips to English and it's teammate.
Co-equiper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Who's teammate?
Teammate of
was
who?
He? Yeah, that's when he's talking to Tadej.
The start of that section as well is before they're set up in the hotel room with the podcast. It's Geraint meeting Tadej in the hotel lobby, but that's not clear, so it just seems like it's some nutter like going up to Pogacar and bothering him, like, and talking too loud in a hotel lobby, and you're like, what is going on here? Like, this is juicy. Like, what's going on? And then you're like, oh, it's just Geraint, like, who off the bike is just some normal guy.
I think they're just in the same or nearby hotels on the rest day. Right, is when that went down. I recognize that hotel. It was the Po Ineos hotel.
I did. I was just gonna, while we're still on Pogacar, I was gonna call him out on some bullshit. Because he even finds time for his own sob story, because everyone else is getting on the action. So why not, you know, Tadej Pogacar, who had made everyone else's life at the Tour miserable, let's feel some sympathy with him as well. Sometimes I wish I didn't have a smartphone, he says. It would be easier. My guy, you earn 9 million euros a year. You could pay someone to be on your phone and tell you the important shit going on. Yep. Even if you like are addicted to Twitter still, you know, I don't judge you for that personally. You could have someone scrolling your timeline and just showing you the interest, the like funny memes and shit.
It's 2025.
You don't need a phone.
Get AI.
You don't need a phone.
Yeah.
Just get
you
AI
don't have a team.
Summary.
Yeah.
Put your phone in the bin. I wouldn't have a phone if I didn't have to, you know, do work and shit.
I want to see more shots of Tadej in those dorky team polos, the zip-up collared.
Oh yeah.
That makes him more
likable.
likable.
More.
Yeah, more of that, please.
I think we should ban team kit. Like off the bike team kit.
Really?
It just sucks so much personality out of everything.
I'm on board with that, Johnny.
I want to see who these people are without the safety of.
You saw it when he was wearing the watch at Wimbledon or whatever.
You know how in other sports we've got like the sort of the walk
Yes.
I love the walk to the event, and it's become like a fashion
trend. Yeah.
Right. And how do we bring that to cycling is the question.
Sign on for the sign on podium.
Sign on, yeah, but they got to be in their kit for that.
Yeah,
right.
Sometimes but then you could like make a game of it, and they got 10 minutes to get out of there. I don't know, wherever the fuck they're wearing.
I like that. Yeah, make it a little bit before, because right now you don't have time.
Booth.
Give them time. Wear a cool outfit. I like that.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about how this episode kind of pretty quickly erased the tension that they created by last episode when they showed us, or I guess now 2 episodes ago when we last focused on the GC, really. All of a sudden, Jonas Vingegaard was in contention. Things got interesting.
Yeah.
That just disappeared. They didn't really cover that, and they could have, because it actually was interesting with Vingegaard for a little while.
Yeah.
And then it was like Orla told us, actually, you know what? Tadej Pogacar's dominating this race, and it's not close. And they didn't really give us any transition between like, oh, actually, Vingegaard might win, to never mind, Pogacar's dominating.
But then they also had Tadej's quote of like, you can never take your foot off the gas, something about that, where he's like, they're right behind me. And then they show like Vingo's 3.5 minutes down.
Right, and they didn't show us how we got there. They didn't show us how we went from 1 minute to 3 or whatever. Yeah.
Especially because they've been more meticulous at following like a linear narrative of the Tour de France this year, which, has its pros and cons. The other bit is when there's quotes from Pogacar and Vingegaard basically establishing how they don't see Carapaz as a rival.
Yeah.
Which is...
Because he's not.
He's not, but it's like... But half the time they're lying, and they're like, oh no, I've got to watch more guys than just Vingegaard, or I've got more to watch than Carapaz. Like there's Pogacar, there's loads of other GC guys, and they are lying through their teeth when they say that. But it must also be morally destroying for, like, if you're Carapaz watching that back and you're working, so hard to even be within touch distance, and they're like, I don't think about.
This is the second time, because we've talked about this before, but there was already the Rolf Aldag just shitting on a team earlier in the show.
Yeah, Total Energies,
And then this now, it's like, you're right, it's got to be hard to watch. Almost as hard to watch as the L'Equipe article that just completely...
You should just re-record that episode so you can get all your takes off it.
Was in that one instance, I was actually intrigued by it. But yeah, it was... This has been a season where we've now seen a couple instances of people just getting totally shit on, and I kind of feel bad for them.
I do, but it's what we need. It
is what we need. It's good.
This episode also kind of hammered home the fact that this is Drive to Survive bike racing. Like, EF is Haas, Jonathan Vaughters is what's that? I can't. Gunther Steiner, right?
Yeah.
Carapaz is Kevin Magnussen. Like, it's like beat for beat pretty similar, because they have like there was one episode in the first season of Drive to Survive where it's like Haas versus like, this would have been 2018, so it was like Haas versus McLaren, and it's like the biggest deal ever, and they're fighting for like P10.
Oh, Gene.
Yeah.
Oh, Gene. Fucking hell, Gene.
Well, that dynamic that you get in Drive to Survive as well, where like normally you don't really care about who comes in 8th and who comes in 7th, but all of a sudden they make you care about that, or they try to make you care about that, and that's what they try to do in Unchained, but I don't think they do particularly effectively. Like, I think that they do a decent job getting you to hope Carapaz wins a stage, but like, I feel like previous years we sort of they did more work trying to get you to care about who came in 4th or whatever, right? And they just sort of completely ignore it this time.
See, I would have thought my cold heart wouldn't have space to sympathize with these people who, for the most part, a lot of the people we see fabulously wealthy, fabulously successful, and their travails are trivial at most. But I do feel some sympathy. I felt sympathy towards, the plight of EF, Vaughters, Carapaz, and was, on their side. I don't know if that's because they are mostly English-speaking team. We do know them fairly well, we know people within that team fairly well, so we have like some, connection to that. But I think for the most part, Vaughters and Carapaz and the team more widely did a good job of getting you to care compared to the other stories we've been told.
I so badly retroactively wanted Carapaz to win the Giro this year after that episode.
Yeah.
I was on board. I was like, I loved the Simon Yates win, but can we go to a different reality?
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to mention that on your quote of the English speaking, Jonathan Vaughters speaks Spanish better than he can say Tadej Pogacar.
Yes, I've noticed that as well.
He was flexing his Spanish. It was great because he's doing like the little like in betweeny like conversational words as well. I mean, Dane, do you speak? How do you rate his
I was
Spanish?
I was impressed by both him and Wegelius. Wouters in particular, but I didn't expect Wegelius to speak any.
No, yeah.
He's in the car doing it pretty well. I was very impressed. Yeah.
I like how Wegelius does his. We introduce him, but I like how he does his Spanish with no attempt at accent. It's just like, this is my voice.
That's the British way.
That's like your mom. That's like your mom ordering a beer at a Mexican restaurant. Spanish.
Yeah, too.
We haven't talked at all about Charlie, and Charlie's in this one quite a bit. Charlie is not the type of character who, like, he understands the assignment. He just not
doesn't
doing
care
the
for it.
assignment.
Well,
He's
explain
not
who
doing the
he is a
assignment.
bit, because I don't think we've been introduced to him previously.
So I think basically JV was like, you gotta play the game, buddy.
This is the blonde guy with good hair in the car. To those of you, who
middle-aged,
who we're talking about.
British. He was a former rider, now sports director. He has a great book called Domestique, where it's quite a raw, life on the road. This is what being a pro is like. Book.
Yep. We like Charlie a lot.
We like Charlie a lot. He's got his what's the word? A very dry sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretends to be. Well, this is my observation of him. A lot of the time, he pretends to be quite aloof on the whole thing and sort of stands like around quite stoically. But you can tell he deeply cares about both the sport and his team and his riders.
Yep.
He's very anti the whole Netflix. Not anti the whole Netflix thing, but like that's not what he's in this for.
No, he doesn't do drama.
No.
Like,
not manufactured drama, at least.
Yeah, he doesn't do drama. Period. Like, I don't think I've ever seen Charlie get truly animated. Even when he had he'll be happy for sure, but he doesn't really swing much in the other direction. He's pretty cool, calm, collected, which I think the best directors are, right? Like they're if the guy in the team car on the radio is freaking out, that's not helping the riders at all, right? So I think that he's a good director. He's been sort of around the block many times. He's been doing this at least for a decade plus. I've been talking to Charlie post stages since 2012 or something like that. Shortly after he retired, but he doesn't add. He's a nice little sort of like bounce off for Wouters. I think other than that, I think intentionally he doesn't really add a ton of context to everything. But he's good inclusion. I think he's like an actual bike racing person. A lot of the characters that we see are actually not that relevant in like the day-to-day bike race. Yeah. Right, so like all the management folks over at AG2R or Wouters himself, like they're not actually involved really in what's going on.
They fly in, fly out.
They fly in, fly out. I mean, JV will he'll show up for 3 days of the tour and then he'll go back or he'll hang out at a vineyard for a week or whatever he's doing. Right, he's not actually working the race. Charlie is in the thick of it, every single day, and that's why I really like the directors when they include the directors in the series. And I think that we don't get as much director usage. Julien Jourdi may be the obvious exception because Jourdi gives Netflix what they're looking for. But I think
he's good for Netflix. Yeah,
most of the directors are more like Charlie, where they're really calm and they're really like drama averse, and so they don't give Netflix what Netflix is looking for.
Which is a shame because with these sort of sports documentary series, we've seen them tend towards a lot. Like Netflix have the quarterback one for American football, or like I think there's an NBA where they focus on like 5 players throughout a season. I would love to watch a Tour de France Netflix series where you follow like 5 sports directors, and like they track them, and then you have and then it's too hardcore for a general audience. But
make
that
it Real Housewives style.
Yeah. Secret Lives of Mormon sports directors just hanging around sipping sodas.
The UAE directors have been what Netflix wants this season, I think, and they haven't done much. They haven't said much. Netflix likes to go to the UAE directors to give you this they're like maniacally laughing as they're chasing down everyone, and that's it. We don't get any comments from them. It's just like a shot of the team car, and they're just laughing. Like, we're gonna catch these guys.
What's the name? It's the Slovenian DS.
Andre Houtman.
Andre, that's right.
You would not, if you've just watched Netflix series, even if you've watched just the Tour de France, you don't follow the sport like that closely. You'd have no clue. he could even be standing there across from you in UAE like staff kit, and you'd be like,
Yep.
I don't know who this guy is or what he does. So low key.
Anything else from this episode?
Well, can we talk about that? What Carapaz actually won the stage, because he did go on to get all the drama about him not winning.
Yep.
Goes back and goes for another round, and
Wins.
It's dramatic. It is dramatic, by the way. I mean, it's a big deal to win a stage for Carapaz. They ratcheted up the drama a bit more than I think it needed to be ratcheted up. Let's say
they lied to our faces.
They lied to your face.
What you're saying.
They made you, if you're maybe not remembering how the stage went, or if you didn't watch, they made you think that Tadej Pogacar was just right behind him. He was gonna catch him if just a little more time passed. It was all gonna be over for Richard Carapaz and his attempt to win stage. What was it? 17, I think.
17, yeah.
Yeah, so let me pull up the final standings of stage 17 so that you can actually get in a sense. So first of all, not only was Pogacar was not second or third, right? Like Carapaz won the stage. Simon Yates was second. Enric Mas was third.
Simon Philip Yates.
Tadej Pogacar on the day finished 27th, well behind a group of attackers. He was 7 minutes and 23 seconds behind Richard Carapaz that day.
You know, if he finished 27th again, I think his team, the sponsors might pull out and they won't be in the Tour de France.
It might be over for them. Yeah.
Do you think Simon Philip Yates is insulted by his erasure?
Total erasure
in this episode.
It's probably what inspired him to go win the Giro this year over Carapaz.
Right.
Yeah.
Time. Nick, there's something you noticed that you meant to bring up from episode 6 about also like weird, not necessarily continuity errors, but like
I would go so far.
This one is, I think, continuity error that you saw.
I would say continuity errors. There is in one of the Binny Jasper sprints that they go through, they have the description from the world feed of what's going on. They start with like, oh, it's 6.5K to go, and it's a shot from them clearly entering the like finish shoot. And then the description is like, oh, Jasper's coming around the outside of Binny, and it's a shot of them. It jump cuts to them slow rolling through some random French town at clearly an intermediate sprint.
Like after an intermediate sprint.
After an intermediate
they've already sprinted, and they're just looking at each other and like gliding.
They're like, haha, good sprint, chapeau, mate. And as they're going backwards, back towards the field, and then it jump cuts back again to the final kick.
It was like I genuinely hope and kind of wonder whether that's going to get cut before it actually like the formal, because we're watching media screenings.
Oh
right?
yeah, maybe.
It is obvious and bad enough. It doesn't look like a sprint.
Like when there's a Starbucks cup in Star Wars underneath the seat
exactly.
or
Yeah,
something
and
like
I
that.
wonder if it's going to get yanked by the time the actual public version.
Hopefully not. Otherwise, that'd make us look silly.
Yeah,
there was another error, or not error, just editorial choice that left me puzzled. I think it's at the start of episode 7 when the quote is UAE are looking to destroy the hopes of every contender in the Tour de France, and they show like Vingegaard, Evenepoel, and then they show Michał Kwiatkowski with his tongue out, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Because I had to zoom back and check like, oh, is that Carlos Rodriguez next? It's not even Carlos Rodriguez in the shot.
No.
So
some
of
the B-roll choices
tired.
Really,
they're tying everyone out. Maybe.
Yeah, but
it's a little bit much random.
Super weird.
Yeah.
I think this episode could have done a little bit better job too describing how GC battles can kind of sometimes swallow up those smaller stories.
Yeah, they just didn't do much of this.
Yeah, because they touch on it because there's the first stage that Carapaz doesn't win in the narrative of this episode, where it's like Jonas and Tadej just mow him down, and I think like they don't even touch on it, and I think it's really confusing to like, how does the greater theme of the GC battle kind of sweep up, and I think they don't really touch on it. They just gloss over it with Tadej.
Yeah,
I think in general, the whole, because obviously this is the last season we're ever going to see. If you were redoing it, I would make it way less of like a sporting documentary. Like they've tried to do a whole like, these are athletes doing athletic things, which isn't really the reason that anyone watches the Tour de France, especially like the casual viewers. You don't watch that as part of your normal sporting diet. It's because of the scenery, because of the intrigue more than the competition, right? It's like it's the unknown of what's going to happen. So if you made it way less sporting and got like teamed up, some cycling producers or whatever, but with more TV, more cinematic you would have got a way better story, and you would have told a way better story that's more true to actually what everyone experiences every July. Whereas it seems to have gone so sort of route one as we've progressed through the series.
Yeah.
And
we're getting into like rap territory here. We got one more episode to go still.
Well, they're basically wrapping up their own season as it is. Like they've kind of taken their foot off the gas and are free rolling down to the finish line.
Agreed. Yeah, I think let's wrap it up there. That's plenty. I think
it was a fine episode.
It was an enjoyable episode. I think the EF episodes are always fun because they do understand the assignment and they know to create a bit of drama even if it's not sort of fully there.
Do you think JV is going to keep his title?
I think he'll probably keep his title.
Yeah.
I don't even know what his title is anymore because they've had other CEOs
now available
come
in Spanish.
Yeah, like he's just floats around figurehead guy at this point, right? But they keep chugging along. All right, let's wrap this up. We will be back. Oh, do we have an After Dark today?
I think if everyone promises to really be in the trust tree, I think there is a story we can tell.
Okay.
From the EF after party, which we were allowed to attend.
Yeah.
Which is relevant to some of the characters in episode 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deep in the trust tree.
Deep in the trust tree.
All right. If you're not a member, escapecollective.com/join, get the member feed, and then you can hear the story we're about to tell.
I think this might be a podcast exclusive because I think last year we were too scared at never being invited to an EF after party ever again.
Yep.
That we didn't want to.
Do we think we're
risk
safe?
it?
Do we think we're safe?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's head into After Dark.